What's up, Bucs fans? Welcome back to another edition of Pirate Parlay here on the Sick Podcast Network. On our second episode of the week, we had Cody Mock on earlier. Great stuff, great insight. If you haven't caught it yet, definitely go check it out. Talked about his rookie season. He talked about the transition that he's made from obviously left tackle in college to right guard and the transition from NFL pros. Spilled the tea on the offensive line room. We got to know him a little bit more with some this or that and favorites like we do with all the players and coaches we have on. So great stuff there, but we're moving on. It's a game week. The Buccaneers have a must-win game. They need to bounce back. They're playing the Texans this week in Houston at 1 o'clock, and it's a game for them they cannot drop if they want to remain in the hunt for not only the NFC South, but really the playoffs in general. I mean, the NFC is kind of falling apart right now, and even the wild card spots are wide open. So it's going to take a good effort by the Bucs. This needs to be their get-right game against the Houston Texans. And we'll learn all about the Texans because we have a special guest today, Harley Dugan, host of The Lead and co-host of Bleav in Texans podcast. He's going to be in here breaking everything down that we need to know about the Houston Texans ahead of this matchup. We'll be right back.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Fresh off their mini bye after a tough loss to the Buffalo Bills, the Bucs take on the 3-4 Texans. At 3-4 themselves, they're still in the mix in the NFC South, only a game back. And it's going to be a big challenge for them to make sure they can get right. Penalties have been their Achilles heel. Execution. There's been a lot of things, miscommunications on the back end and the secondary, letting up big explosive plays. Those all will come into factor as well if the Bucs want to turn this around. But without further ado, I bring in my guest, Harley Dugan, as I mentioned before, host of The Lead and co-host of Bleav in Texans podcast. Harley, how you doing? And welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me on. I'm doing fantastic, and I can't wait to get on talking with some Texans Bucs this week.
Well, let's jump right into a lot of changes for this organization over the offseason. First of all, new head coach, new quarterback. Let's talk about the new head coach, though. First of all, kind of a homecoming of sorts for DeMeco Ryans, who spent a large part of his career with the Texans. He comes in. What kind of changes have you noticed immediately as far as culture, philosophy, and just the overall stewardship that he has over this team?
It's a complete 360 from the last 2 years. It's finally awesome to feel that we're back in the great 32 teams of the NFL. It just didn't feel like the Texans were serious enough to be taken as a 32nd team of the NFL. It just wasn't necessary whatsoever for the fans to see what happened the last 2 years. It was atrocious. And I've said it on my podcast and my YouTube channel. Hiring DeMeco Ryans is a reset button for this franchise. He has been fantastic, a breath of fresh air, just overall helping this organization from when he was a player to now being a coach. This is things that you hear in a movie, Disney movie, Hallmark movie kind of setting. It is happening here in H-Town, and it is amazing. He has a great mentality. He's got a great coaching staff with him. They're still young, but these names are going to start popping up in the next few years. Besides just our offensive coordinator, there's going to be a few other guys that teams are going to take a look at. DeMeco has built this so far, year one. It's, fans in my Houston side, they got to be patient. It's fun to get into that Kool-Aid, but DeMeco Ryans with the swarm mentality and everything with rookie quarterback C.J. Stroud, it has been a fun time here in Houston.
You talk about the last 2 years, and really, I mean, we can go back to the last 10 years before. I guess he who will not be named in Houston, got injured and led them to a promising run with Bill O'Brien. But the culture has been down in Houston. It's been a laughing stock. Put Alabama in, as you mentioned, take the Texans out. How has he changed the culture? Like, what has been the key attribute that he's brought that has got fans and has got the team themselves kind of hyped up that this thing could get turned around sooner rather than later, even though, last year they finished with, one of the worst picks in the draft?
Yeah, so whenever he got, I mean, we'll just take a look at the offseason. You went out and immediately you interviewed coaches this offseason that either A, got to be head coaches, or B, decided to stay put slash whatever, move on to a different team. A few of the head coaches you interviewed were D'Amico Ryan, Sean Payton, Thomas Brown was one of them. You had an interview set up for Ben Johnson. It did not happen. And we could keep going and going. A lot of these guys ended up being head coaches or stayed with. So when you look at D'Amico Ryans and the 49ers, he already had the former player that was amazing here with the Houston Texans. So the fan base is like, oh, man, we love D'Amico Ryans. Let's bring him back here. And then attached with that is you got former Texan players talking about this guy needs to be the next head coach of the Houston Texans. They called him captain for a reason. Former Houston Texan, now radio host on 610, Seth Payne, said as soon as he came in as a rookie, just everybody's eyes and attention gleamed to him. He was called captain immediately as a rookie, and everybody just gravitated towards him. And that's what this fan base has done. That's what the players have done. And he just has this aura to him that whenever he speaks, you listen, and everything that just comes out of his mouth just feels right. And it's great to finally have that, because you haven't had that in the last 2 years. Hence David Coley, hence Lovie Smith. D'Amico Ryans, again, huge breath of fresh air, and it feels amazing to finally have a coach and to feel relevant again in the NFL.
One of his big hires was bringing with him 49ers passing game coordinator Bobby Slowick, running the offense as the offensive coordinator. What has his offense philosophy been? Is it pretty much a copy paste of what they're doing, what Kyle Shanahan's doing in San Francisco? Where does it differ? Where is it similar? And just the spark that he's brought to the offense with a lot of young players on it.
Yeah, so Bobby Slowick, a little bit about him. He started it all the way back as a video coordinator with the Washington Redskins, then named the Redskins, now Commanders. And he was just he wasn't even like, if you look at the coaching staff, he's not even on there. Like, you got to look deep into it. And he's a video coordinator with Mike Shanahan at the time, with Kyle Shanahan that was on staff. Sean McVay was on that staff as well. And I believe LaFleur might have been on that staff. So that's how far this goes back. And sure, when you say copy and paste the Shanahan system, for the most part, yes. But there are some tweaks, there are some refinements that he has done. But there is some criticisms going into this week from Bobby Slowick because of what happened last week against the Panthers. It definitely felt like, we're starting to see more of him continuously running the football, which has always been the bread and butter to a Shanahan Kubiak scheme. We know this one because we had Gary Kubiak. The problem is we had Arian Foster and Ben Tate. We don't have Arian Foster nor Ben Tate, and that is no slight to Damian Pearson, Devin Singletary. Just those guys are not at the level of an Arian Foster, and we're still trying to run the football behind an injured offensive line, behind an offensive line that's kind of makeshift still at the moment. It's really not the set five that we were all predicting from the beginning of the season. So Bobby Slowick, where he has done really good things in the past, this last week, a lot of criticisms are getting thrown towards his way. But overall, I think he is still a good offensive coordinator in this league. This is his first time calling plays, man. So this is learning curves that we're going to have to get through. And it's all about execution still from the players. And that is what was lacking last week against the Carolina Panthers. Bobby Slowick will be fine. Just our Houston fan base, might have to slow the brakes a little bit on what they're trying to critique when it comes to Bobby Slowick.
You're not going to tell me that. We have obviously Dave Canales, first time offensive play caller as well. Worked with quarterbacks, worked in pretty much every role on offense, but offensive coordinator. And he too is from that branch, right? It all starts with Mike, but then it veers off to Kyle and Sean, LaFleur, and then all the other guys, Stefanski, O'Connell, Waldron.
Yeah.
All these branches of that original Shanahan, then Kubiak type scheme. But the scheme itself is something that I think what a lot of fans don't realize is that it's highly effective. but it doesn't implement overnight. It's not one of these schemes that you just put in and your ground is running from day one. It takes a while, especially in the run game. The Texans are having some of the similar struggles there. They want to be, part of what this offense calls for is balance between the run and pass. Even when, the run and pass aren't working, unless you have a top tier quarterback, you need to make sure that you are balancing that play call out. And it feels like Slowick seems to have some of the same things. Fans might call him stubborn for sticking to the run or running on certain downs and distances or first downs. But what they don't understand is that I think that this system takes a while. It's not going to, it's, midway through the season, 3/4 of the season, then everything starts to gel together. Is that kind of what you're seeing over there on your side as well, especially in the run game?
Yes, and I do think what makes it somewhat frustrating is you've had a big game against the Jaguars where you dropped the 30 bomb, and then right back to back, you dropped another 30 bomber against the Steelers. So that's what fans are looking at. They're going back to those games, and they're looking at it like, hey, man, this offense was successful when CJ Stroud was throwing the football consistently. And, you also look at the Steelers game, and I'm going, well, that is true, but that was your best rushing output. And Dameon Pierce had an amazing game, actually, his best game of the season so far, and what's been very little from him so far. And in the Jaguar game, you had everything go right for you in that game. I mean, hell, we had a fullback return, a kickoff return for a touchdown. So that tells you everything was going right for you in the Jaguar game on the road. So, yes, is he stubborn? Sure, absolutely. And, we had Glover Quinn on the Bleav in Texans podcast in the offseason, and he had mentioned like the offense. He played with Gary Kubiak here, so he knows a little something about this offense. And he had mentioned like, hey, this is going to be a work in progress. When they were in practice implementing the scheme, like they did the same play offensively, would do the same play over and over and over and over. And sure, most of the time it did not work, but whenever it came to game day, then it was like, oh, okay, well, this is an offense that has gelled so much in the offseason because of continuously getting that repetition, knowing exactly what they need to do. And, it's tough to say to be patient, fans, especially to a team that hasn't done anything in the last 2 years. You've gotten some big wins this year, possibly ahead of schedule in terms of your rebuild. It feels good to get sucked into, looking into the future and looking into this schedule and going, oh, man, maybe we got a chance for the playoffs. Right. Let's reel it back a little bit. And we got to remember, still first-year head coach, first-year OC, rookie quarterback. These you got to reel it in. We got to be patient. And it's tough to say that as a fan.
Yeah, same thing. You're coming off the Tom Brady years. Everyone wants to continue that gravy train going, but sometimes you need the Bucs aren't rebuilding, more so retooling, resetting. You mentioned that rookie quarterback. Let's talk about him. CJ Stroud, what has been the biggest surprise for you from him so far this year, and just where his trajectory is with the Texans and for the rest of this season?
There is hope back in Houston again. It is finally just awesome to see a quarterback that is playing really good on Sundays. And granted, he had a horrible performance this last week against the Panthers. I say horrible, but I mean, this is where the critiques for Bobby Slowick come in, because CJ Stroud only had 5 passing attempts in the fourth quarter. And that's just something that can't happen. Okay, that's where we say, okay, we need to pass the football a little bit more. CJ Stroud is not the Brock Purdy. He's not the Matt Schaubs. He's not the Jimmy Garoppolo's. And it does feel like in a certain way that Bobby Slowick still thinks he's trying to utilize our quarterback that way, when we've seen the arm talent, the accuracy, and the way he is just the awareness to adjust on the fly is different from this guy. And he is a different kind of quarterback. And I do believe the Texans got the best quarterback in the NFL draft. And I am just fully confident with him the mindset around the fan base is basically if number 7 is healthy and he's ready to go, you got a chance to win every single game.
With him, you see what he's been able to do, especially against pressure. I'm trying to look up the numbers right here. When he's pressured, he's got a passer rating when he's blitzed, rather. He's got a passer rating of 117. He's gone 40 for 61, 563 yards, 4 touchdowns. It's 4th best in the NFL. The Bucs, on the other hand, have blitzed 39% of the time, with the 3rd highest rate in the NFL. In that, they have not executed as well as they wanted to in the past couple games. They still have, right in the middle of the pack, 18th with 18 sacks in the season. So they're still getting to the quarterback, but it hasn't been to the level extent. What makes Stroud so good against pressure? And if you're the Bucs and Todd Bowles on this defense, who obviously 39% of the time on passing down to sending an extra man, what should they be prepared for when Stroud does get pressured?
I mean, that's a typical Todd Bowles defense. He's been doing it since the New York Jets.
Right.
You got to expect pressure. And CJ Stroud, I think offensively behind Bobby Slowick, they had a really great game plan against the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that has a vaunting defensive line led by TJ Watt, who's leading the Defensive Player of the Year category. And that Texans team, with not just backup offensive linemen, but 3rd stringers and practice squad guys, gave up 0 sacks. And it wasn't just because of the offensive linemen. It was because, you had guys motioning, extra guys coming in, someone to chip in. And this is where I say the team is sold with DeMeco's identity. I always go back to the Steelers game, and you got Andrew Beck motioning in, getting a head start when he hikes the ball to get that extra guy in there real quick to, plug up a gap or whatever, or having John Mechie, a guy that just came off leukemia and a torn ACL, and he's motioning, and they're hiking the ball as he's motioning, and they take the right tackle off of TJ Watt. John Mechie, you're about to knock TJ Watt on your ass. And that's exactly what he does. And that tells me, this team, the players are sold on what DeMeco Ryans is telling them to do. And it was just amazing to see that. So the Houston Texans, again, have to do similar things. If they're going to get around a team that's pressuring a lot, they have to bring the chips in. They got to, Mike Boone is a really good pass protecting running back, who's our 3rd running back. They will use him at times. Andrew Beck's going to be used a lot. The big key with us is Tegan Pretoriano is now going to be playing. Not saying he's a huge factor offensively, but in terms of blocking, he's one of the better blocking tight ends for us. Brevin Jordan's not going to be there either. So, the Texans just have Dalton Schultz. They brought up 2 guys from the tight end position off the practice squad. One of them being I think it was Dalton Keene. Can't remember the other name. That's how deep this, not remembering that whatsoever. So the Houston Texans are going to have their hands full. The big problem is I still do not like Titus Howard at left guard. It's just not a natural fit for him. There's nothing against him, but you paid him to be a right tackle. Let him play right tackle. They got him at guard. They got George Fant at right tackle, who's played solid, and a lot of fans are saying, well, this is the best 5 offensive linemen. We've heard Bobby Slowick say that too, where sure, I do agree. It is the best 5. I'd rather have Titus Howard at right tackle. We have a guard in Josh Jones, who we traded for from the Arizona Cardinals. And sure, wasn't too pretty with him the first 2 weeks, but he had a tremendous game against the Steelers. So, I still wonder, what are we doing there on the offensive line? But again, chipping, having to send in extra guys. And CJ Stroud has had the awareness overall, to throw that quick pass, to get the ball out faster. This last week, though, was a problem with batted passes. That's something we haven't seen at all against CJ Stroud. So I'm curious as to what the Panthers saw on film, and if the Buccaneers are like, all we got to do is, we can't get home, let's watch the eyes of the quarterback and let's get our hands up and bat the ball down.
Yeah, some of that's definitely bad throwing angles because he's got the height. It's not like he can't throw over his offensive lineman. But let's talk about that offensive line. Man, they're on their fourth center. Just got decimated so far at that position. You had a couple rookies going there for you for a minute. Obviously, Kendrick Green was supposed to be the guy. Then he gets injured. So you bring up Juice Scruggs. He gets injured. Jared Patterson gets injured. All three of those guys on IR, down to Michael Dieter. Let's talk about center first. What's the confidence level in Michael Dieter? How did he perform last week? Obviously, sacked quite a few times against the Panthers. What is the outlook on Dieter for Houston fans? And then, we'll get into kind of the injuries still facing this team and the injury report that came out.
It's just been the old cliche, the next man up mentality. And Michael Dieter came from the Miami Dolphins, knows the scheme. He's played okay in his time here. The short time here, he's played already before at the guard position, this time now at center. I Bleav he played center when he was at Miami. So he's a versatile guard center combo. He's going to have a handful. There's this guy named Vita Vea, who I hear is pretty good. Some athletic freak that's 6'4", 360. He's going to have his hands full with him. I don't expect that to be favorable whatsoever. Even if it was Jared Patterson, who is an outstanding rookie 6th-round pick for us, didn't give up a sack and I Bleav 200 snaps. But he had his struggles against the top-tier defensive lineman, one of them being Grover Stewart with the Indianapolis Colts. That was one of his worst games he's played. So Dieter, on the other hand, is going to have, again, his hands full. The offensive line, hey, the Houston Texans, this is nothing new to them, okay? And C.J. Stroud, he gives that confidence to everybody. The way he talks in the press conference, he mentions everyone by name. He pays dinner for everybody. Every single week, he has an offensive team dinner, and he pays for it. And it's just you could just tell he is a future leader for this team, and we feel great that the franchise is in his hands. The keys are in his hands. But this is nothing new. We've played without Titus Howard in one games. We've played without these guys. We've played without Tank Dell in one game. So we've been having a makeshift offensive line this whole year. It's been tough, but this isn't going to be easy. But I'm going to lean that, hey, C.J. Stroud knows what he's doing. This offensive scheme is going to cook up something, and hopefully they get it done.
Well, there's one guy who's been consistent and pretty much throughout his career. Shaq Mason over there, traded for him, gave him a nice contract. He's been consistent over there at guard for you guys. But you look at the injury report this week, all your tackles are on there pretty much. The guys who are playing guard, the guys who are playing tackle, George Fant, Titus Howard, Josh Jones, bumped up the full participation this week after limited participation in yesterday's practice. Jones was a full participation yesterday too, but that's an encouraging sight. Laramie Tunsil didn't practice on Wednesday, but jumped up to limited participation on Thursday. Even if these guys can go, they're banged up. What? I get it's a next man up mentality, but when you're trying to block against an aggressive defense and you're injured, it's never easy. What are you hearing as far as these guys' availability on Sunday? Should the Buccaneers expect them to be at full strength with Fant, Howard, and Tunsil to go? Are any of these guys potentially not going to be able to go on Sunday? What's the latest word out of Houston there?
All of those guys are playing. Laramie Tunsil was out Wednesday because of a veteran rest day. So he's going to be just fine. He's had a knee problem for the last maybe 3 weeks now. So he's going to be fine. He's going to play left tackle. Your left guard will be Titus Howard. Your center will be Michael Dieter. Your right guard will be Shaq Mason. And then your right tackle will be George Fant. That's been the five for quite some time, besides the center position, of course, with Jared Patterson now possibly out for the season with a torn, actually broken fibula, I want to say. I could double check that later. But the offensive line, that's going to be your five. I expect all of them to play.
Another guy who's on that injury report who is trending and not playing. Robert Woods already ruled out likely with a foot injury, but Dameon Pierce, that starting running back of yours, dealing with an ankle injury, second consecutive day, did not practice. You mentioned Mike Boone and Devin Singletary. They're two guys who are not guys you want toting the rock a bunch of times a game. Obviously, Devin Singletary proved his ineffectiveness with the Bills. That's why they didn't re him up. But as far as Dameon Pierce's impact on the season and what it means if he can't go on Sunday.
Yeah, it is likely that he doesn't play this Sunday. It's usually Thursday's the big one in the injury report, right? You look at Thursday and Wednesday sometimes a veteran rest days for some of those older guys that don't practice. So Thursday's that big one. Robert Woods didn't play last week. I don't expect him again to play this week. Dameon Pierce is the one, so it sure does look like he's not going to be playing this Sunday. You talked about Devin Singletary. Actually, he's been pretty solid here with the Houston Texans. And if anything, I think he fits the scheme a lot better than Dameon Pierce. And Mike Boone, who only had 2 carries last week against the Panthers, both of them, one of them went for 5 yards. Another one went for, I want to say like 7 or 8 yards. And that was it. You only saw him with the ball 2 times. When last week we heard that Bobby Slowick was going to have a running back by committee, it was basically split between Dameon Pierce and Devin Singletary, and then 2 touches by Mike Boone. So Mike Boone has shown that he can play in this system, in this scheme. Who knows? It's only been just a few reps we've seen, and obviously, everyone loves the backup quarterback. Everyone loves the third running back. So those are what fans are always going to look towards to. But Devin Singletary, I think, is a fine running back for this team. He has proved himself to be a scheme fit and played well in this system when given the rock. And he's been deserving of more touches. That is why they've gone with this running back by committee, which to me they should have done since the beginning of the season. I thought it was always going to be maybe 65-35 Dameon Pierce, but it just doesn't seem like Pierce for some reason. Last year, man, he was just carrying that thing. He got injured at the end of the year, making him shy of 1,000 yards for a rookie. But I mean, he was amazing last year. I'm thinking this year, this scheme has always provided just great fortune for running backs. We look at Justin Forsett, who is, let's be real, a nobody. Went to the Ravens. He was here with the Houston Texans to Gary Kubiak, then went to the Ravens, became a Pro Bowler. Arian Foster, undrafted out of Tennessee, Pro Bowler. I mean, Terrell Davis all the way back then with the Denver Broncos, undrafted, Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer. So, or it might have been a 7th-round pick. I could be wrong. But regardless, like we've seen the fortunes for this running backs in this system. It just hasn't translated for Dameon Pierce. There's a lack of ball carrier vision from him, whether or not he's getting to the hole fast enough, whether or not he's running into contact on some of the film. So, it's been a work in progress for him. I do think he could play more of and y'all are familiar with this guy, a LeGarrette Blount kind of role. Gotcha. Where, getting that extra yardage, goal line, attempts. He's a guy that once he gets going, then it's a problem because he's going to punch you in the mouth. And he's going to get 7-8 yards, but he's going to punch a defender right in the mouth. He's going to get into that second level and get into someone's grill real quick. And if he consistently does that, then it's like, okay, this guy's starting to get going. You got to slow him down. It just hasn't. He's been sputtering all year. He'll have a run here and there, break it for 10, 15, but nothing substantial happens with it, and it's been frustrating.
Yeah. Last thing on the offense side of the ball, Robert Woods is out, again this week likely, and that provides more opportunities for second-year guy Nico Collins and rookie Tank Dell. Just the impact that they've made on the team this year, and as reliable weapons for CJ Stroud. And how do you defend these guys? It seems like they're used similar to Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk that the 49ers use. Just talk about those two guys' impact on the offensive side. Then we'll jump on the defensive side of the ball and wrap it up.
Yeah, so Nico Collins has been a pleasant surprise. He was just nothing his first 2 years here with the Houston Texans. And that's just credit to what happens when you get a good quarterback. Davis Mills just didn't highlight Nico Collins enough. There's CJ Stroud was on the podium maybe I want to say 3 weeks ago, could be 4 weeks ago, where he had mentioned that he watched film of last year on Nico Collins and just said, man, he's open a lot of the times. Why wasn't he getting the ball? Whether or not that's a shot towards Davis Mills, who knows? But Nico Collins was open, and CJ Stroud has been finding him, and he is starting. I still don't believe he is that wide receiver one just yet. Texans fans get a little upset when I say that, but I'm still he's good, and he's a wide receiver one for our team. I still think he has a high potential for a high wide receiver two, but he has some intangibles that are very nice to have. 6'4", 220, big body wide receiver, runs like a deer. He's fast as hell, shifty. The yards after the catch, at some point, he was first in the NFL with yards after the catch. He is tough to bring down once he gets the ball going. Expect skinny posts from Nico Collins. Expect some slants, quick slants, maybe an intermediate slant here and there. And CJ Stroud's been accurate to giving him the ball. Tank Dell has been absolutely amazing, somebody that CJ Stroud wanted all the way back in the draft. It was clear. He had mentioned him after we had drafted Tank Dell and everything. So they had a connection in the NFL Combine, and it's just grown ever since. Tank Dell is obviously a Houston product, but he did go to JUCO here in Florida. So that's two different connections. He's been amazing. Last week, it's tough to gauge where my Texans are because last week really threw me off. It threw me for a loop because Tank Dell, we've seen him utilized as he should be utilized as a wide receiver to a slot guy. They've been using Robert Woods in the slot and having Tank Dell and Nico Collins on the outside. That's how much they've had the confidence with Tank Dell. He is just shifty. Route running ability is just, I still believe he was the best route runner coming out of the draft, and that could be some of my Houston Cougar bias coming out there, but I absolutely love Tank Dell. But last week, they sort of used him more in that gimmicky role, gadget kind of player role, like they used Deebo Samuel as a running back with the 49ers 2-3 years ago before CMC got there. And sure, Tank Dell, obviously, he's going to make plays. He had the highlight where he juked the guy to the right, boop, spin move, so he has the ability to do that. That's just sometimes you go to that well too many times, and it's just not something I want to continue seeing from him. I think he's a wide receiver. Let's use him as a wide receiver. We did it in the Jaguar game, which was a breakout game for him, and right. It just seems like his receiving attempts have just gotten downhill a little bit. And I just kind of wonder why. I get we want to give him the ball as many times as possible. I understand it. It's what D'Amico said at the beginning of his press conference whenever he got here to Houston. We want to get the ball into playmakers' hands, which is great to hear. And I don't have no problem with it. But Tank Dell, I need him back at wide receiver. I need him dashing guys up, hitting them with the dust, dropping their ankles. He's an amazing receiver. Him, Nico Collins, and then after that, Dalton Schultz, yes. But after that, we're starting to, grit our teeth a little bit. Noah Brown is solid. He's been solid in his return. He had a good game against the Carolina Panthers. Probably should have got some more passes thrown his way. After that, John Mechie hasn't really been nowhere to be seen. I don't know where he's at. Xavier Hutchinson, rookie wide receiver. He's still a rookie. We haven't seen a lot of him either. Definitely feels like the Texans only ran 3 wide receivers last week. Just what it feels like. So it's been a little tough.
So jumping over to the defensive side, first round pick on the offensive side, cornerstone quarterback CJ Stroud. Defensive side, cornerstone edge rusher, defensive end Will Anderson. What have you seen out of Will Anderson so far that is encouraging, especially with the pick that they drafted him at?
Yeah, so a lot of people just, this is the conversation around him. They glean towards the sack numbers. Well, he's only got 1 sack. I think Will Anderson has been fantastic. I think he's been fine. He does set that edge, and, he's top in pressure win rates, in all the NFL next-gen stats. He's like top 5, top 10 with guys like Michael Parsons and the Nick Bosa's, the Joey Bosa's, all the top rushers. But for some reason, the sack numbers just haven't, manufactured for him yet. And it's going towards Jonathan Grenard. He's got 6.5 sacks, I want to say, or 6 sacks on the dot. He has been fantastic, a Florida Gator for y'all fans down there. And he has been absolutely fantastic. Last year, he was banged up. So, we haven't seen a lot from him. This was more of a prove it year for him because when he was here with us 2 years ago, Lovie Smith was a DC, not the head coach. He had a fantastic year that year. Injured. Now this year, he's back on it again. So Grenard has been the guy to get the sacks. Will Anderson has just been double teamed, chipped. I mean, they're throwing everything at this rookie. Every NFL team is saying this guy is not going to disrupt the game for us whatsoever. Everyone's had a great game plan besides maybe the Steelers game where he had some drives. He just destroyed drives. I mean, he gets past the right tackle and tackles Kamara as soon as the ball's in his stomach.
Right.
Just blew up the drive for the Saints. So there's been some highlight plays here and there from Will Anderson. I know Texans fans are frustrated because the sacks. That's really what it comes down to. Is how many sacks has he got? Oh, he's only got 1. What is he doing? I look at it like this: J.J. Watt only had 2 sacks so far this many weeks in his rookie year in the NFL. Will Anderson's got 1. JJ finished with, I want to say 5.5 or 6.5 his rookie year. He really turned it on at the end of the year. Hopefully that is something that happens to Will Anderson.
Yeah, you look at this team in general, just knocking the quarterback, bringing them down. I mean, they're 31st in the league in sacks, so just 14 on the season. The pressure has been, I'd like to say there, but also inconsistent at times. What's been the biggest holdup for them finishing plays and getting the quarterback down, and the lack of production as far as statistically the sack part of it?
Yeah, so again, fans are going to look at Will Anderson. What you traded up to get him is something that you can't gloss over. He's only got 1 sack, and fans are going to look at, hey, we brought this guy to get sacks, get pressure, get to the quarterback consistently. And it's tough to say that from a rookie, fans are expecting him to be generational because that's what you traded up some stuff to get him. A pick here and there is what I heard, so him, Grenard, I mean, take last week out of it and we might be 34th. I mean, last week, the Houston Texans had, I want to say 4 or 5 sacks last week against the Carolina Panthers. And that was their best game last week against the Panthers offensive line that just seemed to have no answer. Yeah, 6. Didn't have no answers whatsoever for Jonathan Grenard. I mean, he put Icky just on his ass on one play. It was just dirty. And so it's been tough specifically for the interior side. Malik Collins had a great game last week with 2 sacks. But the lack of interior defensive linemen on this team, it has been an issue. I thought they should have. That was my biggest thing in the defense was, okay, you got Waj, you got Jonathan Grenard, you got a Jerry Hughes who still is productive or, generates some pass rush at his age still. But sure, you brought in Sheldon Rankins. He's more known for his run stopping ability. Right. Malik Collins is known for his pass rushing. And then you got a Hassan Ridgeway who just is a scheme fit, perfect scheme fit, stops the run consistently. Sheldon Rankins, I don't Bleav is playing for this game either. So you'll have Malik Collins, you have Hassan Ridgeway, and then after that, Kurt Heinisch has been okay. One of the guys that have been really good is Khalil Davis, a guy that played in the XFL. And a guy that played in the XFL and has just came onto this team in the preseason. He was making plays, and fans got upset when he got cut. I was like, oh no, I liked him. And now it's okay. They brought him back. He's been back for, I want to say 4 weeks now, and he makes plays. You see him here and there. You'll see him, every once in a while. He's just in the ball somewhere. He's getting to the running back on run stopping plays. But there's just a lack of depth on the interior defensive line. And it's been to a point to where D'Amico's got to send in a linebacker, a safety, just to generate some sort of pressure against the opposing team. And the secondary just didn't do a really good job last week against the Panthers either.
You talk about that secondary. That's where I'm going next. Not doing a great job back there, presenting opportunities to get the offense back on the field. 24th in the league with just 4 interceptions. 3 of them have come from Steven Nelson. Obviously, without Devin Singletary, which was a huge loss for this team. They brought in some new guys, and Shaquille Griffin, who kind of flamed out with the Jags after being such a really good player for the Seahawks up there in Seattle. Jimmy Ward has been the tone setter. Jalen Petrie, I think, led the league in missed tackles last year as a rookie, but he's been a little bit better. But, I mean, you look at that secondary opportunity, chances, some drop picks. They just have not been getting turnovers for this offense, for this defense to get the offense back on the field. What has it been about them? And we're running up against it. But what has it been about that defense that hasn't been able to get turnovers for the defense and for the offense?
The secondary, which has been a strength of this Houston Texans team, actually. But Derek Stingley is the guy that's been out. He's going to be out again this week. He's been having a lingering hamstring injury. But Steven Nelson has been your best cornerback all year. I think it's starting to get to them, though, where, Shaq Griffin, Tavier Thomas, Kadar Homan. Kadar Homan might not play this week. But all of them guys have been filling in for Stingley. Tavier Thomas is more your slot cornerback. He was finally back last week. I just think it's starting to get to the secondary a little bit, not having that shutdown cornerback in Derek Stingley, and that's been the note on him. He's just been injured. But when he's on the field, nobody throws his way because he is just a special cornerback, and it's tough to tell the generic national fan that, hey, Derek Stingley is legit, but he just doesn't play. And it's been frustrating from your number 3 overall pick. So to manufacture turnovers, it has been tough on this defense, especially coming off the Lovie Smith defenses where they have generated turnovers. So for some magical reason. And but D'Amico Ryans, it's been a constant key at practice and everything. Jalen Petrie is fantastic safety. Jimmy Ward is a fantastic safety. Steven Nelson has been magnificent, extending him this season as well. You got guys. You got those 3 guys. You got to hold down the fort. You got to do your job better. Last week was a horrible game of lack of execution and everything on the defense side in terms of the secondary. Bryce Young getting the extension of plays, and he was just slicing the secondary last week. It was pretty upsetting.
Hey, look at this defense. I mean, they're holding people to points. They're not letting guys score points. I mean, they're 6th in the league in points against, 18.3. They're not letting defenses, opposing offenses score on them, kind of bend but don't break, but they're also not giving that offense the ball back and with sacks to end drives and turnovers to put them back out on the field. So that's certainly been a pain point for the Texans defense. Real quick, the Buccaneers, when they're on offense, what should they do? How do they exploit the Texans defense? What are their weaknesses, and what should they try to do to move the ball on them?
So the Texans have been struggling to stop the run. That has been a struggle point for them the whole year. Again, that goes back to the lack of depth across the defensive line, the interior specifically. So Rachaad White, I would say whatever his numbers are fantasy-wise or the parlays, I would lean on saying bet the over. Mike Evans is definitely a problem for any team whatsoever, but Steven Nelson is going to have his hands full, and Steven Nelson plays with a chip on his shoulder. He is going to be ready. I'll say that. I love Steven Nelson and what he's been doing for this Texans team. Last week was probably his worst game of the year, and he only had like 3 catches against him. So he's been really good. So I would say run the ball consistently, try to attack the inside part of the defensive line with running the ball. After that, last week was so frustrating to see again that for some reason this defense cannot stop. They're allergic to stopping just a simple hike the ball and throw it to the running back right to the outside. Like, these are just simple defensive plays to make. And it's just, why can we not stop a little itty bitty route to the running back when the quarterback is in trouble? You know, whether they're blitzing, they're not blitzing. It just seems like for some reason they do not cover the running back on the flats for some reason. I have no idea why. It happened last week, and it was frustrating because it gave me PTSD of last year with Lovie Smith's defense. That happened constantly. And Austin Eckler last year, just constantly the same play over and over and over. It was like Madden, all right? It was like going up against someone in Madden. So it was pretty ridiculous to see Chuba Hubbard do that consistently. I do say the Texans get better at that, improve, and somewhat adjust. If they don't, I would look at Rashad White receiving yards as well. You know, so he could be a really big X factor for the Buccaneers. Mike Evans is always a problem, whoever. But the biggest thing for this Texans defense is, you know, they have a solid secondary. I'm going to put that game last week, which they had a great defensive game, but put that game behind us a little bit. The offense has to get going. They have to not be sputtering. They have to get going. And, you know, D'Amico plays really good. His defense plays really good when they have a lead. And that, I mean, that's almost any NFL team. But this defense can really start to pin their ears back and just generate pressure to make the quarterback uncomfortable. It hasn't manufactured sacks, but making the quarterback uncomfortable is always a great step in order to ending drives, getting off the field. Houston Texans have done that pretty well. So,
as far as the Buccaneers, when they're on defense, getting to Stroud, we went over his numbers against pressure, so you got to be careful when you pressure him. But what can this defense do to take advantage of the Texans offense?
It's going to be tough. I say that. I'd expect the Houston Texans to have a bounce back game. I really do. I cannot see that type of performance they did. They lay in an egg against the Carolina Panthers. I can't see it again. I don't believe that's going to happen again. Offensively, I expect a huge bounce back from them. CJ Stroud mentioned a lack of execution from not only himself but other players, and said that this is an accountability league in the NFL. And I thought that was a great quote from a rookie quarterback. So what the Buccaneers got to do against him, teams have been taking away the middle of the field. That has been what's been happening lately. The Houston Texans, their strengths in the beginning of this season, specifically the Jaguars and the Steelers game, was attacking the middle of the field continuously. Now we've seen Panthers and Saints. They have done it where, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to cover this middle of the field, and we're going to force CJ Stroud to move off his first read, second read, and now he is looking at other options. And when you look at it, especially without no Robert Woods, who's been that safety valve, you could say, that veteran. You need 6 yards, he gets you 7, you know, so he's been consistent for you in that terms. He might only get 4 catches for 40 yards, but they're going to be huge first down gets. That is something we're going to miss offensively for the Texans. You hope to have that with Tank Dell. They did that in a little bit of the beginning of the game against the Panthers. So take away the middle of the field, make him try to throw more to the outside. As much as CJ Stroud has been accurate with the football, this last week he missed a few passes on the outside. I thought that was something noticeable to see. Curious if the Buccaneers, again, I would assume they follow the same game plan, try to generate pressure on him, which they will. 40% of the time they're generating pressure, and maybe push the passes more towards the outside. He missed a few deep throws as well. Frustrating game last week.
And then finally, your score prediction. What do you have going on here? Obviously, two teams, 3-4 each, looking to make some noise in those divisions. Obviously the Bucs in a pretty bad division themselves, but they're right in there. Jack's starting to pull away a little bit. What do you got a score prediction for this game?
Texans fans hate me because I've predicted wins. I predicted a blowout win last week against the Panthers. They say I am some sort of a jinx. So I have some magic juju apparently with the Houston Texans that I did not know of. But I did say that I think they're going to have a bounce back week on offense. I think that's going to contribute to a victory for the Houston Texans. I'm going to go 24-13 Texans. I think the defense is going to continue to play very well. They played great against the Carolina Panthers, regardless of everything I've somewhat said with them. They played a good game. They played good games again. Saints 13 points, Carolina 15 points. So the Buccaneers offense, besides Mike Evans and Rashad White, I start to look at, okay, who else do the Buccaneers offense have? Baker Mayfield.
Chris
It
Godwin.
depends. I mean, I also look at it like the Buccaneers are on a 3-game losing streak, and they're going to be trying to play with, their asses are on the line,
Right.
So, and if Baker Mayfield, don't ever doubt Baker Mayfield. A lot of times he plays his best when people doubt him. And we already I hate seeing that, we got our offensive lineman Titus Howard and Laramie Tunsil. Titus Howard already came out and said, we're going to box him in. We're basically implying that we're going to win this week. So I love the confidence. It's something I've never seen from a Texans team ever. So I'll take it like a random gift on the street that's $20 on the side of the road or something. But yeah, I'll take a victory. 24-13 Texans.
We definitely went a little bit over here at time. I know Sammy's dying to watch. My producers are dying to watch the Titans game. I got one more thing for you before I let you produce. Sorry, guys. I know you're a wrestling fan. What do you got for Crown Jewel this week?
Oh, yes. I saw the shirt for you. I got a little excited. Give me the American Nightmare. Whoa! Anyway.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Let me talk to you.
Let me talk to you. All right, everybody. I would really love, Booker T was talking about LA Knight winning, against Roman Reigns. It would be super unexpected because everyone's just granted that Roman Reigns is going to win. Why not? Why not have LA Knight win? Why not? I would absolutely love to see it. I don't think it happens. So Roman Reigns, as much as I love LA Knight and his old school, theatrics, it has been just a refreshing button to see in the WWE again. But no, I do think Roman Reigns is getting that dub. He's going to secure it. He's not going to be at Survivor Series, apparently. Come on, man. I get upset with that. Maybe we get to see some CM Punk at Survivor Series. Who knows? That would be interesting.
You got Damian cashing in on Drew or Seth, or who do you think wins that one? And then we'll get out of here.
I don't think so. I don't think Senior Money in the Bank is going to cash it in. It's been an odd storyline to see whether or not he's going to cash it in or not. And I do, I get a feeling that Drew McIntyre is going to win. I'm getting that feeling. I mean, maybe they're starting to help. Yeah, the Judgment Day helping. Is Drew McIntyre going to be that guy to now? Is there going to be some jealousy created with the Judgment Day if Drew McIntyre wins? And there's this little storyline they could stir there. It definitely feels like he's going to be turning heel. So I think he wins.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wish LA Knight would win, but it's not his time yet. Yeah. I can see him moving over to the red brand and taking that title eventually, maybe winning at the Rumble, especially if Gunther's still holding on to the IC title by that time. But we'll see. No one's really stepped up. It looks like they're trying to get Miz to do a push to get him, but we'll see. That's going to do it for us. Go ahead and promote yourself, Harley. Thanks for all the time, and thanks for coming on here breaking down your Houston Texans.
Yeah, again, my name is Harley Dugan. I have a YouTube channel called @TheLead_Houston. You can just type in @TheLead_HOU. I am everywhere on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter. Make sure to follow me, subscribe. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. So I appreciate everyone that has subscribed. Get on in there. We give you all the latest updates, news, rumors on everything, all Houston, all the time, Astros, Rockets, and Texans. Bleav in Texans podcast, myself, and Ruben, shameless plug, go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's at 8.3 thousand subscribers. The man's getting bigger and bigger and bigger every time. And so, he's my host. I'm the co-host, Bleav in Texans, anywhere where you stream all your podcasting platforms.
Awesome, Harley. Thank you so much for popping on here. Excited to have you and a host of Bleav hosts on here this season. So good luck to you this weekend. It's going to be a fun matchup. I think both these teams desperately need these wins to stay alive in their prospective races. They're both going to be hungry. I think the Bucs are a little more hungry. I think they come out with a W. But thanks for coming on again, man, and it was good chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you, my guy.
There you have it. We went way over on this podcast, but guess what? We do every podcast. So this is supposed to be 30 minutes long. We're over 45 minutes. But you know what? It's good information. It's great information. I like to talk a lot. My guests usually like to talk a lot. I'm here for it. Let's do it. I know my producer wants to get to the Titans game. That's because we're recording on Thursday night. So we're going to get out of here. I want to thank you guys, as always, for dropping by to the Pirate Parlay. Brought to you by the Sick Podcast. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button. We'll be back with another player, another guest. I don't know. We're flying by the seat of our pants here. We've been kicking ass all season. We're going to continue to kick ass. It's going to be one of the best Bucs podcasts out there. Thanks, guys. Talk to you later. Yeah.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.